If our members would get to find their seats, our guests find a seat in the gallery. Good morning, excuse me. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Will County recess meeting of the Will County Board. I call the meeting to order. If everyone would please stand and stay standing. Our County Board member, Amanda Cook, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and introduce the clergy for this morning.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. I did not know it was my month, but that said, I would like for Pastor Brooks, if you could help us with a prayer this morning. Thank you.
Sure. I don't mind helping. Shall we pray? Thank you, Lord, for another day. Allow us to come together right before this Thanksgiving season, that we have much to be thankful. For your word reminds us in 1 Thessalonians 5:22, and all things give thanks. And Lord, we just come thank you today for this month, for our friends and our family. Now, Lord, thank this agenda. Bless this agenda. Bless this commission and all our Will County. Continue to strengthen and bless our executive, Larry Walsh, and his family. In our Lord's name we do pray. Amen. Amen. Can I shake your hand?
Nice and
pre-coffee. Punch your card.
Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Ferry.
Here.
Frizzalone.
Here.
Ogala.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Moostis.
Here.
Rice. Tyson. Harris.
Here.
Trainier.
Present.
Fritz. Mueller.
Here.
Gould. Van Dyne.
Here.
Balich. Brooks.
Here.
Parker.
Here.
Ventura.
Present.
Dollinger.
Here.
Markham.
Here.
Berkowitz.
Here.
Cowan.
Here.
Tuminello. Weigel. Curlitis.
Here.
Winfrey.
Here.
24 present, 1 absent.
24 present. A quorum is present. Entertain a motion to place on file the certificate of publication. Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, seconded by Mr. Ferry. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Ferry.
Yes.
Frizzalone.
Yes.
Ogala.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Moostis.
Yes.
Rice.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Trainier.
Yes.
Fritz. Mueller.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
Van Dyne.
Yes.
Balich.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Parker. Ventura.
Yes.
Dollinger.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Berkowitz. Cowan.
Yes.
Tuminello.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
Curlitis.
Yes.
Winfrey.
24 affirmative.
24, the motion is carried. Next ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the Will County Board recess meeting of October 17th. Moved by Ms. Trainier, and second by Ms. Rice. Any discussion? Any discussions? Previous roll call by Ms. Berkowitz and second by Ms. Parker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, motion is carried. Motion to approval of the minutes of the executive session of the county board of October 17. Make it motion by Markham, Mr. Markham, and second by Mr. Harris. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Gala. All in favor, say by aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried. Madam Clerk, please acknowledge the elected officials and media this morning.
This morning, we have here Auditor Duffy Blackburn, Circuit Clerk Andrea Lynn Chasteen, County Clerk Lawrence Daly Ferry, County Executive Larry Walsh, Recorder of Deeds Karen Stuckel, State's Attorney James Glasgow, Treasurer Tim Brophy, State Senator Jennifer Bertino Tarrant. And for the media, we have Alice Fabre from the Daily Southtown, Nick Ryer from the Farmers Weekly Review, and Alex Ortiz from the Herald News.
Okay, thank you. Next up is honorary resolution and proclamation. Our first resolution is recognizing Mike Hennessy on 30 years with the United Way of Will County, and County Board member Meta Emilio will read from her desk a resolution. Ms. Mueller.
I would like to read. Am I on?
Yeah, you?
I would like to read into the record a proclamation recognizing Mike Hennessy for 30 years with United Way of Will County. Whereas Mike Hennessy has served as President and CEO of United Way of Will County since 1989, and whereas Mr. Hennessy is known throughout Will County for his commitment and compassion for its residents, and whereas his storied career began in 1970 working on the psychiatric floor of St. Joseph's Hospital in Joliet and continued in positions with the ARC of the United States and the United Cerebral Palsy of Will County, and whereas Mr. Hennessy's dedication to Will County is evident by his assistance in creating the Southwest Suburban Philanthropic Network, Daybreak Homeless Shelter, Child Care Resource and Referral, Joliet Alliance for Youth, the Will County MAP, and the Will County Disaster Relief Fund, and whereas he also finds time to serve on the boards of multiple organizations, including the Will County Center for Economic Development, the Will County ETSB, the Community Services Council of Joliet, and the Rotary Club of Joliet. Needless to say, Mike Hennessy is a true champion for Will County and all of its residents. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive do hereby recognize Mike Hennessy for decades of tireless service and loyalty to our county and the many organizations supported by United Way of Will County. Be it further resolved that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive acknowledge and congratulate Mike Hennessy for his 30 years of service with the United Way of Will County, an organization which has touched each and every resident of Will County in some manner, and credit him for his consistent devotion to helping others. Dated this 21st day of November, signed Lawrence M. Walsh, Will County Executive, and attested Lauren Staley Ferry, Will County Clerk, and I so move.
Move, and second by Mr. Van Dyne. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried. Thank you, Meta. Next up is recognizing 100th anniversary of Zonta International. Would Ms. Winfrey come to the podium, and well, with all the Zonta ladies that are here, Helen Ross is the president, and accept the recommendation.
Come on around. Come around. Terry, Mary, Christine. Thank you. It's a pleasure this morning to be able to award this recognition in honor of the 100th anniversary of Zonta International. Whereas the Confederate of Zonta Clubs was organized in New York on November 8, 1919, with 9 charter clubs. Now there are over 1,200 clubs in 68 countries throughout the world with nearly 33,000 members. And whereas Zonta International, a leading global organization of professionals, celebrated its 100th anniversary on November 8, 2019, and whereas the mission of Zonta International is to empower women worldwide through service and advocacy, and whereas Zonta envisions a world in which women's rights are recognized as human rights and every woman is able to achieve her full potential. In such a world, women have access to all resources and are represented in decision-making positions on an equal basis with men. And whereas the Joliet Zonta Club is made up of professional women in the Joliet area with a mission to advance the status of women locally and globally, and whereas the money Joliet Zonta raises goes towards scholarships, international projects, and local charities, and whereas some of the organizations the Joliet Zonta Club has sponsored include Guardian Angel Home, Lamb's Fold, Will County Habitat for Humanity, and Will County Legal Assistance. Now therefore, be it proclaimed that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive hereby congratulate Zonta International on their 100th anniversary. Be it further proclaimed that the Will County Board and the Will County Executive recognize the Joliet Zonta Club and express their appreciation for the contributions made to the citizens of Will County. Dated this 21st day of November 2019, Larry M. Walsh, Will County Executive, Lawrence Staley Ferry, County Clerk, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Cook. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Helen? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. On behalf of the Joliet Area Zonta Club, we are pleased and honored to receive this recognition of our 100th year anniversary of Zonta International. I will repeat a little bit of the information that Madam Speaker just said. The Confederation of Zonta Clubs was organized in New York in November 8, 1919, and we have a membership internationally of 30,000 members. Zonta International is headquartered in Oak Brook, Illinois. The Zonta Club of Joliet was chartered in 1973. Zonta is united worldwide to fight violence against women and girls. We envision a world where no woman lives in fear of violence. We hope that you have received our email invitation to join us to participate in one of our initiatives on November the 25th. Please join us at the Will County Courthouse Plaza for the lighting ceremony, Orange the World, in conjunction with our 16 days of activism, November 25th through December 10th. We Zontans extend special thanks to Will County Executive Offices, the Board of Commissioners, the Chief of Staff's office. Only to mention, we are extremely grateful to Deputy Chief of Staff, Mr. Dave Tack, who listened, planned, and guided our advocacy chair, Mary Bodino, each step of the way to make Orange the World lighting ceremony a reality. We want to also thank Gilbane Construction Company because we decided that this could be done, and I just really applaud Mr. Tack for listening to us and taking this to you. We are so appreciative. Behind me, we have Mary Bodino, who is our advocacy chair. I think to the left of me, Mary Bodino, the advocacy chair, Ms. Christine Schlischman, who is our corresponding secretary, and Ms. Terry King, whom all of you know, and who all of you seem to know. But again, we are very appreciative of this. We hope that you will join us, because certainly this is an inaugural initiative, especially to light up that beautiful, wonderful building. Thank you. Have a great day. Okay, we will.
Congratulations. Yeah, sure. Absolutely, no problem. Mary. Good to see you. Mary. Good to see you. Hey, Christine, how are you? Good to see you.
All resolutions approved at the October 17th County Board meeting have been signed by the county executive. Our first order of business is an appointment by the county executive, Ms. Winfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Mr. Executive, I request that Ms. Sherry Newquist be placed in the position of District 1 Commissioner, and I so move.
Second by Ms. Trainier. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has been carried.
Mr. Executive, I move to seat Sherry Newquist in County Board District 1.
Second by Ms. Trainier. Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying, was he seated? Motion
Swear
seated.
first.
Call the roll. Okay. Well,
Swear first.
well,
Swear
yeah,
motion to seat.
we better, no, well, yeah, swearing in.
I changed my motion, Mr. Executive, to allow for the swearing in of Sherry Newquist.
Oh, yeah, she better be sworn in before she's,
Thank you.
It's not here.
I left mine up there. Maybe that's what's wrong. It's yeah. Mine might be on top of theirs.
Things, did you grab her oath by any chance?
It might be under my paper. I left mine. I didn't pick up anything. I had my glasses, that's all. There was a paper already there. I didn't move it. Oh, maybe Helen picked it up with her stuff.
I don't know it.
That's probably where it is.
Hertz got it.
That's what it is. That's those people.
Okay, we're set. Go back now, that's down there. Ready? Right hand and repeat after me.
And picked it up with her stuff, yeah, because I left everything there.
Having been appointed to the office of county board member and commissioner of the Forest Preserve District for the county of Will in the state of Illinois, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my office as Will County Board Member,
of my office as Will County Board Member,
District 1,
District 1,
and Commissioner of the Forest Preserve District
and Commissioner of the Forest Preserve District
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, your seat.
Yeah. That's okay. Got it, you must have. Okay. Mr. Executive, I move to seat Sherry Newquist in County Board District 1.
Okay. Ferry.
Yes.
Frizzalone. Yes. Ogala. Yes. Newquist. Cook. Yes. Mustis.
If he says.
Rice. Harris.
Yes.
Trainier.
Yes.
Fritz. Mueller.
Yes.
Gould. Van Dyne.
Yes.
Balich. Brooks.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Ventura.
Yes.
Dollinger.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Berkowitz. Cowan.
Yes.
Tumanello.
Yes.
Weigel. Krolitis.
Yes.
Winfrey.
Yes.
25 affirmative, a motion is carried. Welcome to the Will County Board. Thank you, Ms. Winfrey. Moving on, next committee, Land Use and Development, Mr. Markham, Chairman. Mr. Markham. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you, Larry. It's good to see you up there again.
good to be seen.
I'd like to start land use by making a motion to open the public hearing for all land use cases.
Moving second by Ms. Ventura. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Ferry.
Yes.
Frizzalone.
Yes.
Ogala. Newquist.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Mustis. Rice. Harris.
Yes.
Trainier.
Yes.
Fritz. Mueller.
Yes.
Gould. Van Dyne.
Yes.
Balich. Brooks.
Yes.
Parker. Ventura. Dollinger. Markham.
Yes.
Berkowitz. Cowan. Tumanello.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
Krolitis. Winfrey.
Yes.
24 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Be advised, absolutely no new evidence or information will be allowed once this land use public hearing is closed. We have 4 cases today. Case ZC 19-043, ZC 19-050, case ZC 19-051, and ZC 19-057, and case ZC 19-43. No, excuse me. I already read that. So we have one person that signed up to speak on 1957, Dimitri. ZOGRAFOS.
Only question.
Okay, thank you. Anybody from the public wish to address any of these zoning cases? Anybody from the public wishes to talk on any of these zoning cases? Anyone from the public? Mr. Markham.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion made, second by Ms. Ventura. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Ferry.
Yes.
Frizalone. Ogalla. Newquist. Cook. Mustis. Rice. Harris. Trainier. Fritz. Mueller. Gould. Van Dyne. Balich. Brooks. Parker. Ventura. Dollinger. Markham.
Yes.
Berkowitz. Cowan. Tumanello. Weigel. Krolitis. Winfrey.
25 affirmative, the public hearing is closed. Proceed, Mr. Markham.
All right, first up, we have zoning case ZC-19-043, which is a request for a special use permit for heavy equipment sales/rentals in Green Garden Township, commonly known as 24149 South LaGrange Road, Frankfort, Illinois, County Board District Number 2. The committee voted 6-0 to approve, and I'll make a motion to approve it.
Moved by Mr. Markham, second by Ms. Cook. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Previous vote by Mr. Tumanello and second by Ms. Parker. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Next up, we have zoning case ZC-19-050, which is a zoning map amendment from A1 to I2 in Joliet Township, commonly known as vacant property on Burke Drive, Joliet, Illinois, County Board District Number 8. Land Use and Development voted 6-0 to approve, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Markham, second by Mr. Tumanello. Any discussion? Any previous roll by Ms. Cowan, second by Mr. Harris. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next up, we have zoning case ZC-19-051, which is a zoning map amendment from A1 to I2 in Joliet Township, commonly known as vacant property on Cherry Hill Road, Joliet, Illinois, County Board District Number 8. Land Use and Development voted 6-0 to approve, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Markham, second by Ms. Dollinger. Previous roll by Ms. Berkowitz, second by Ms. Fritz. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next up, we have zoning case ZC-19-057. First is a zoning map amendment from C3 to I1. The committee voted 6-0 to approve, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Markham, second by Ms. Ventura. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Dollinger, and second by Ms. Ogalla. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next up, it's the same case, zoning case ZC-19-057, special use permit for an outdoor storage yard with 7 conditions. Land Use and Development voted 6-0 to approve, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Markham, second by Mr. Van Dyne. Any questions? Any questions? This previous roll call by Mr. Krolitis, second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
Next up is the same case, zoning case ZC-19-057, which is a special use permit for a self-service storage facility with 2 conditions. Committee voted 6-0 to approve, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Markham, second by Mr. Harris. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Cook, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
That's all the business that Land Use and Development has for today. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 10th, 2019 at 10:30 a.m.
Thank you thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Markham.
Mr. Executive.
Next up, Finance Committee, Mr. Harris, Chairman.
Good morning, County Executive.
Good morning.
How was that?
That's better.
Thank you. Good morning, fellow county board members and all in attendance. The first item I have is a reports to be placed on file. I have two reports. The first report is from the Illinois Department of Revenue showing sales tax remitted to Will County for the month of August 2019 to be $1,916,866.43. The RTA tax received is $2,277,685.67, for a total of $4,194,552.10. The next report is from the Will County Treasurer dated September 30th, 2019. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Cowan. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
The next item, I would like to motion for a public hearing regarding the 2020 annual budget. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Cook. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Ferry? Yes. Frizzalone? Yes. Ogalla? Yes. Newquist? Yes. Cook? Yes. Mustis? Yes. Rice? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Trainier? Yes. Fritz? Yes. Mueller? Yes. Gould? Yes. Van Dyne?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes.
Parker? Yes. Ventura? Yes. Dollinger? Yes. Markham?
Yes.
Berkowitz? Yes. Cowan? Yes. Tumanello? Yes. Weigel? Yes. Krolitis?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative. We are in public hearing. Mr. Markham, excuse me, Mr. Harris. We're in public hearing for what reason?
The 2020 annual budget. This budget final changes is totaled $624 million, of which $213 million is in the corporate fund and $411 million is in the special fund. It meets all our debt obligations. It contributes $500,000 to the OPEB fund and to dedicate funding of $4 million to the IMRF accelerated payments. The total levy amount is $129 million. It's an increase of $3.7 million. That includes the CPI and new property. Overall, for the tax levy rate is a decrease over last year, and it's the 5th year in a row that it's going down. It includes a 5-year road and capital plan, and also the license and permits are down. So that's some of the highlights of this budget. We've been going since March of 2018 with various workshops, input from department heads, county board members, and others. So that's what we have in front of us.
This is a public hearing, and anybody want to ask questions on the budget? Anybody want to make any comments in general public? Rocky, maybe this is about a time you would fit that. You signed up for when you want to talk about taxes. That maybe is the opportune time to give you your opinion. And Nick, you can come down if you can come down after Rocky and make your comments. That way you don't have to sit through all the whole meeting.
My name is Leon Ossick. Most people know me as Rocky, as Larry just addressed me. I'm here to talk against these proposed gas taxes. We're taxed enough in this state. It seems like all our legislative bodies just think, okay, more taxes, more taxes, more taxes on all different things, not just the gas. People can't afford it. People are moving out of the state because of this. I mean, I just think that we need to put a stop to it, and I don't see where the county needs the money. I mean, the county roads, from what I understand, appear to be in decent shape. There's just got to be some stop to this madness. And I hope that you won't be putting an extra tax on the people, because it hurts. It hurts a lot of people. And not only us, but it's our children, grandchildren. The more we put in taxes, the less we have for them, for quality education and different things. But so that's all I have to say. I'm against any more taxes, but I'm here right now for the gas tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Nick Friccarello. I live in Manhattan Township. I've been a lifelong resident of Will County. Soon this governing body is going to be addressing, discussing, and voting on the issuance of a gas tax that would put an additional burden on our citizens and also on our seniors in Will County, along with an additional burden on our business owners that provide goods and services throughout the county and around the county. As a lifelong citizen of Will County, I ask that this board deny or vote against the issuance of an additional gasoline tax affecting the citizens of Will County and the surrounding communities, and especially our seniors. We've been taxed enough, and I believe that this additional burden, especially with the farmers and the business owners, could be a burden that will ultimately be passed on to the consumer. So the citizens of Will County will get a double whammy, paying the tax and also having higher prices for goods and services being delivered. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Drew McFarland. Morning.
Hi, my name is Drew McFarlane. I've lived in Will County my entire life. I was reading the Herald News this morning and I saw where the Democrats said they wouldn't go over 4% on this tax. And this tax is, I'm against it obviously, and I would like to see a referendum on this with our constituents. This isn't like building the Will County building or building the Sheriff's Department or the Health Department. This is a tax that once implemented will last forever. It will never stop. They'll never take it away. Those buildings, once they're paid for, it's done. You had a 20-year plan that you planned 2 years ago, and at that time you didn't expect the 19 cents a gallon that our governor put into effect. You didn't expect the 28 million in grants. That's all happened this year. And now you're going to add 4% more, or possibly 8%. And I think one thing, I hate to see this on a strictly political side, where the Democrats say we're going to vote for it and Republicans say we're not. Doesn't anybody think for themselves anymore? I mean, I'm an independent. I voted for Democrats and Republicans as I see fit and what their positions are. And I'd like to see more of that in this country. I think that it's a shame that our soccer moms, elderly people, have to pay for the road improvements that are strictly and mainly done by large trucks in this area. And I think the right approach, if I was on this board, would be to work with the state and try to get a tax that takes care of this problem, where you can tax the big trucks. It might take a year or two to happen, and it's going to happen from Springfield and then trickle down to our county, because you don't have the authority to do that right now. But I think it's the proper approach to this problem. The bridge out by the ExxonMobil plant that was built not that many years ago is in dire repair right now. The big trucks are ruining these county roads, and I think that's who has to pay. And when they have 300-gallon gas tanks on their trailers and trucks, do you think that they don't look at their apps and decide where we're going to pick up our fuel as they come into the logistics areas? They're going to buy their fuel in Indiana, wherever it's a penny or two cheaper per gallon. And they're not going to buy it in Will County, as the Herald News said this morning. That's dreaming. I know what I do. I check prices on the apps, and that's how I buy my fuel every day. And if I could buy it out of state when this happens, if it's much cheaper, I would do it if it made common sense. But the biggest problem with the tax, it's not that we can't afford, as they said. I agree with you on the fact that you can afford maybe $40 more a year. But when you add up all the new taxes that are coming down the road, that's the problem. It's the multitude and the adding of the taxes, all the different taxes, that make it where it's impossible for the small guy to get by. And if you didn't save your money for retirement, you're going to be squeezed, or you might never retire. And that's the thing I think you got to remember. There's one person on this county board that can make that decision to have a referendum. All of you could say you don't want it, but that one person could say we want a referendum and has the power to do it.
His nickname is...
And I think that should be. Let the constituents at least voice their opinion on this. Don't be afraid of them. Don't think you know more than the people. Most people never show to these meetings, and you know that's true. Most people can't get up in front of a crowd. That's never been my problem. But the fact still remains that you're representing the little guy, the people that don't vote. All of these people, they still have to live in this community. And I think it's a necessity that you think of those people every day. And this is the way you can do it. You've got a new 68% addition to your tax, the $28 million grant this year. That's enough for this year. You can wait a year. Work with your legislatures and get this done the right way. Because once you put this tax, the other thing is this tax keeps rising. It doesn't stay at 4%. As most taxes in the past have been a specific, like 19%. This new state tax is a rising tax, fixed to inflation. But it doesn't go down with inflation, it only goes up. Your tax is fixed to inflation. Once you put the 4% on, it continues to rise without anybody's further approval or being involved. It just happens. That's a terrible type of tax, because then the constituents never see the what's going on. And one other thing, and I've said this at a town hall meeting, and I'm going to end this. If you go to the gas station, you never see the amount of tax on a bill at the gas station, because it's against the law to post. You only see the total of what you're paying. And the legislature many years ago made it where that's the way it has to be done. You go to any store, they list how much the merchandise is, how much the tax is, and you see the total. You can't see the total at a gas station. And I think that's really ignorant too. People ought to realize what the tax is when they're buying a product. Anyhow, do the right thing. Think of everybody. I mean, everybody's talking about the little guy these days. Now's your chance. And don't do this on party, Democrats and Republicans. Do what's right for a change. Do what you want to do. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody from the public, any comments on the proposed budget, 2020 budget? Seeing none.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second, who seconded? Seconded by Ms. Mueller. Call the roll. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Ferry?
Yes.
Frizzalone? Yes. Ogala? Yes. Newquist? Yes. Cook? Yes. Mustis? Yes. Rice? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Trainier? Yes. Fritz? Mueller? Yes. Gould? Yes. Van Dyne?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes.
Parker? Yes. Ventura?
Yes.
Dollinger?
Yes.
Yes.
Markham? Berkowitz?
Yes.
Cowan?
Yes.
Tumanello?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Curlitis?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
25 affirmative.
25 affirmative. The public hearing has been closed. Proceed, Mr. Harris.
Okay, I have a few resolutions to bring forward. The first one is 19-302. This is the annual budget and appropriation ordinance of the County of Will, State of Illinois for the fiscal period beginning December 1st, 2019 and ending November 30th, 2020. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Rice. Mr. Ogala, comment?
Yeah, thank you so much. A lot of times when we have these conversations, I'm always in support of our residents, and I think that we need to always look at taking less than the full CPI. CPI is an increase to our residents. They're already paying more just to live in the county, and I think that we should have always taken that into consideration, and that we should not take the full CPI. So I will be a no vote on the entire budget and the levy because of that reason. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Gould. Good morning, John.
Just for clarification purposes, Mr. Harris, we're not voting on the gas tax today.
I couldn't hear him.
I was saying, we had some speakers here. We are not voting on a gas tax today. That's not part of our agenda, correct?
That's correct, as far as I'm...
Okay. And that's not part of ordinance 19-302 either, so...
Correct.
Okay. That's, just wanted to clarify that so everybody knew that was not part of today's agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Don. Mr. Balich?
Yeah, I just think to myself, we're in the state of Illinois that's taxing everything now. And we don't even know what the actual dollar amounts are going to be yet because they haven't hit us hard yet. But we're going to know real soon. And all these taxes affect who? The seniors and those on fixed incomes. Them are the people we're supposed to care about most. The people that are hurting. These taxes affect them the hardest. I think it's a shame that we have to tax to the max. You know, and a long time ago, 3 years ago, one of the board members says it's just a couple meals at McDonald's. Well, to some seniors and some people on a fixed income, they'd like to have a couple meals at McDonald's extra. You know, I'm very upset about this every time. You got to read 25 million in bonds. Every time you turn around, there's a new tax. And nobody wants the damn taxes. And the other thing is, if you own a house, what do you think? You're going to get more money for your house because you increase the property tax? You're going to get less because less people qualify for your house. They can't get a loan, so they got to go down. It only hurts everybody. So please, vote no to it.
Any other comments?
Once again, County Executive, I'd like to reiterate that this is the 5th year in a row where the tax rate is going down, so we're doing our part to help the residents. I mean, other factor that goes into the total tax bill is somewhat out of our control. I mean, home values are going up, but we're doing our part to keep the rate low, which we've been focusing on for the last 6 or so years. So that'll be my comments, that this budget does include a lower tax rate.
Many other questions, comments? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Ferry.
Julie, I see Julie.
Thank you, County Executive. I appreciate it. I just wanted to say that I've heard our citizens, I've heard their voice, and many dozens of individuals have expressed their desire for the gas, in respect to the gas tax, to have the opportunity to vote on it through a referendum. I hear that, I agree with it, and I don't know if we can have that conversation and give the board an opportunity to decide whether or not it's something we can do. But I just wanted to say thank you for the residents who took the time to come out today and speak, even though it isn't on our agenda today, but also hoping that perhaps we might be able to consider their request. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, Madam Clerk, call the roll. This is on Resolution 19-302.
That's right. Ferry.
Yes.
Frizzalone.
Yes.
Ogala.
No.
Newquist.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Mustis. Rice.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Trainier.
Yes.
Fritz. Mueller.
Yes.
Gould. Van Dyne.
Yes.
Balich. Brooks.
Yeah.
Parker.
No.
Ventura.
Yes.
Dollinger.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Berkowitz.
Yes.
Cowan.
Yes.
Tuminello.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
Krolitis. Winfrey.
Yes.
Affirmative, 4 negative.
Yep.
21 to 4, the motion has carried.
Next is Resolution 19-303, Corporate Fund Levy. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Cowan. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call. Second by Ms. I know. And second by Ms. Cook. All in favor, say aye. Aye. We have 4 people that you're staying a no? Oh.
I'd like to be a no. And I was a yes on the original.
Roll call.
Okay, we'll go through roll call on all 13 of the 15. Okay. If we're going to do that, well, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Ferry.
Yes.
Frizzalone.
Yes.
Ogala.
No.
Newquist.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Mustis.
Yes.
Rice.
Yes.
Harris.
Yes.
Trainier.
Yes.
Fritz. Mueller.
Yes.
Gould. Van Dyne.
Yes.
Balich.
No.
Brooks.
Yeah.
Parker.
No.
Ventura.
Yes.
Dollinger.
Yes.
Markham.
Yes.
Berkowitz.
No.
Cowan.
Yes.
Tuminello.
No.
Weigel.
No.
Krolitis.
No.
Winfrey.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
17 affirmative, 8 negative.
17 affirmative, 8 negative. Motion has carried. Mr. Harris.
Next is Resolution 19-304, the FICA levy. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Ventura. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call. second by Ms. Cook. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
17-8 is previous roll call.
Next, we have 19-305, the IMRF levy. I so move.
We'll go from there.
Yep. Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Van Dyne. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Tumanello, second by Mr. Gould. All in favor, say by aye. Aye. Contrary, motion carried. That is a vote of 17-8.
Next, we have 19-306, tax levy for the Tort Immunity Fund. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Cook. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Call the roll. Previous roll by Ms. Ogales, second by Mr. Ballage. All in favor say by aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried. That vote is a 17-8 vote. Next, 19-307, Mr. Harris.
19-307, this is a tax levy for the Workers' Comp Reserve Fund. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, seconded by Mr. Markham. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous by Ms. Fritz, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor signify by aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried by a 17-8 vote. Next, Mr. 308, Mr. Harris.
19-308, this is a tax levy for the TB Sanitarium Fund. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Berkowitz. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll call by Ms. Winfrey. Previous call. Second by Mr. Ferry. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, that a vote of 17-8. Next, 309, Mr. Harris.
19-309 is the tax levy for the Health Department Fund. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Rice. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Ms. Trainier, second by Ms. Cook. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, that vote is a 17-8 vote. Next, 310, Mr. Harris.
19-310, this is the tax levy for the County Highway Fund. I so move.
Mr. Harris moved, the second by Mr. Van Dyne. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Ferry, second by Mr. Ballage. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, that vote will be 17-8 for the Highway Fund. Next, 311.
19-311, this is the tax levy for the County Bridge Fund. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Van Dyne. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Ms. Cook, second by Ms. Trainier. All in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, that motion carried. Vote 17-8. Mr. Harris.
19-312, this is the tax levy for the federal aid matching. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Ventura. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Ms. Ogala, second by Mr. Ballage. And that All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, that vote is 17 to 8. 313.
19-313, this is transferring fund within the share of 2019 budget. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Trainier. Previous roll call by
Roll call.
Paul.
Roll call vote.
Switching up on you.
So we want a roll call.
Madam, call the roll.
Ferry?
Yes.
Frizzalone? Ogala?
Yes.
Newquist?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Mustis? Rice?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Trainier?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Gould? Van Dyne?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Ventura?
Yes.
Dollinger?
Yes.
Markham?
Yes.
Berkowitz?
Yes.
Cowan?
Yes.
Tumanello?
Yes.
Weigel?
Yes.
Krolitis?
Winfrey?
Winfrey?
Yes. 25 affirmative.
You want to vote, Mr. Frizzalone?
Yes.
Vote aye?
Yeah.
Good.
That's everybody.
25.
Yep, 25.
25 affirmative, motion has carried. Mr. Harris.
Okay, the last resolution is 19-314. This is authorizing county executive to execute necessary documents for the delinquent tax program. I so move.
Moved by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Cook. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Berkowitz and seconded by Ms. Parker. All favors say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried. Mr. Harris.
Okay, I would like to thank the staff, the fellow county board members, department heads, and all involved in this past budget process. As you know, we moved up the dates to allow more time and more opportunity to understand what we're actually voting on. So my sincere thanks to everyone involved. And with that being said, that concludes my report. The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for December 3rd, 2019 at 10 a.m.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Very fine report, Kenny. And thank you, your committee and our financial department, all the work, and Melissa and Rashawn and Karen, all that put hours and hours in to put this budget together. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next up, Public Works and Transportation Committee, Mr. Van Dyne.
It's safe to take a break.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Van Dyne. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, board members and residents of Will County. We have 7 resolutions this morning to consider, starting with number 1, 19-315, authorizing approval of professional services agreement for supplemental design engineering services agreement with Willett, Hoffman and Associates, Cedar Road, County Highway 4, over Spring Creek, County Board District 7, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Mr. Frizzalone. Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Balich, second by Ms. Berkowitz. All in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
19-316, authorizing approval of professional services supplemental agreement for right-of-way acquisition services with land acquisitions for several parcels of property along Bell Road at the intersection of 143rd Street, County Highway 37. That's County Board District 7, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Mr. Balich. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
19-317, authorizing supplemental funds for agreement between the County of Will and Chi-Cap Pipeline, whose contractor operator is BP Pipelines, for reimbursement for relocating facilities along 135th Street from Smith Road to Emily Lane, County Board District 7, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Mr. Balich. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Frizzalone, second by Ms. Fritz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
19-318, authorizing an agreement between the County of Will and Northern Illinois Gas Company, NICOR Company, for reimbursement for relocating facilities on Francis Road, County Highway 64 at Parker Road intersection, County Board District 12, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Ms. Bryce. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Ms. Dollinger, second by Ms. Mueller. All in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
19-319, authorizing approval of professional services agreement for right-of-way acquisition for several parcels of property along 80th Avenue from 191st Street to 183rd Street, County Board District 2 and 12, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, seconded by Mr. Weigel. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, excuse me, and second by Mr. Frizzalone. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
19-320, intergovernmental agreement for emergency vehicle preemption system at the intersection of Francis Road and Parker Road, County Board District 12, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Weigel. Excuse me. Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Mr. Weigel. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Mustis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
And lastly, 19-321, granting ingress and egress for a vacant lot on Manhattan-Money Road, County Highway 6, County Board District 2, and I so move.
Moved by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Mr. Mustis. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Tumanello, and second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
The next Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting is scheduled for December 5th, 2019 at 9 a.m., and that concludes the report. Thank you.
Fine report, Mr. Van Dyne. Next up, Judicial Committee, Mr. Markham, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. We have nothing for this month. Our next Judicial Committee is tentatively scheduled for December 3rd at 9 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Public Health and Safety Committee. John, Mr. Gould.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. I have two reports to place on file. I have the 2018 annual report from Will County Coroner Patrick O'Neill. I have the quarterly report from July 1st through September 30th submitted by Dr. Sean Walsh, Regional Superintendent. I move to place these reports on file.
Moved by Mr. Gould, seconded by Mr. Mustis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Our next meeting is December 4th at 9:30, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. Next, Legislative and Policy Committee, Ms. Tremere. Chairperson.
Good morning, County Executive.
Good morning, Jackie.
Good to see you in your seat this morning.
Again.
I bet it feels good to be there.
Be seen.
That too. We had a lively discussion, of course, as always, at our legislative meeting. I will reiterate once again, all county board committee chairs, all county department heads, and countywide elected officials, I would encourage you to take a look at what you might need from either the state or the federal government and give us some proposed bills that you might want us to either draft or find someone to draft, and or legislation that you'd like to see passed that has not yet come to fruition to help you out in your mission for your group. We are in the midst of discussion on both the state and the federal agenda, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe January, we'll have a draft for everybody. I'm hoping, ho, 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 maybe a Merry Christmas present. We'll see. But that's all I have to report today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You got your work cut out for you. Next up, Capital Improvement Committee, Mr. Brooks, Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Executive, County Board.
Good morning, Herb.
Although I have no resolutions to bring forth, we did have 3 tours of some of our construction sites. Everything's going real well. I've been informed by Joel that we are ahead of construction on 2 of our sites, which is good news. We had some rain delays, and we also had some good reports, no injuries again. So that's all I have, and our next meeting is scheduled on December 3rd, 2019, 11 a.m. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good, fine report. Oh, Mr. Tumanella.
I could just add one quick line. You know, in the fall of 18, the Capital Committee worked diligently to really put this together quickly so we could go out and get favorable bids to get it out. Because we worked so hard as a group, for those members who were here on the Capital Committee at that time, I want to thank you, because of that, we were not affected by those historical rains that affected the other projects. Just to give you a little bit of an update, the building is now scheduled to finish by mid-March of this coming up year, instead of the mid-June that we had originally anticipated. We also confirmed that the abatement contractor will be able to shift his work and get in that building and start moving once we have the employees moved out. With this new date and with this new timeline, we could start demoing the building most likely the end of May, after the abatement is finished, with the now scheduled end of project beginning in September. So this is good news for the health department, and we're very excited for that.
Very good news. Thank you, too. Thank you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray. Okay.
Next up, Executive Committee, Ms. Winfrey, Chairperson.
Good morning, Mr. Executive.
Morning, Denise.
And good morning to our fellow board members. Executive Committee has a number of resolutions today, the first one being 19-322, authorizing insurance contracts for property and casualty, auto, general liability, excess workers' comp, loss control, and other management-related risk, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Ferry. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Ogala, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor say aye. Aye. Contrary, the motion has carried.
We have 19-323, which is a discussion to ban the sales of recreational marijuana in unincorporated Will County. And I'm going to put that onto the floor, Mr. Executive, and I believe that the state's attorney needs us to table that because of some language issues. I move. So moved.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Markham. Mary?
So, as we were in the back reviewing this, the concern is on the agenda item is listed as a ban of the sales of recreational marijuana. But as we drafted the ordinance, it's broader than that. We took the language straight from the statute, which indicates that cannabis business establishments would be prohibited, which includes cannabis craft growers, cannabis cultivation centers, on and on, some of which arguably would not be participating in sales. So it would not be easy to amend this on the floor. So I would respectfully request that you would send it back to committee for further discussion and move forward that way. But that's up to you. Regardless, there is quite a bit of the public here to talk about this, and I would encourage you to hear what they have to say, regardless of what you decide as far as either tabling it or sending it back to committee.
Ms. Ventura.
Yeah, we did discuss this morning in caucus, not the error, but about tabling it, and we felt
Pull
that...
your mic down, please.
We felt that there had been multiple opportunities to discuss this. We have received emails from the public. We've received phone calls from the public. Many different towns have had their own meetings about this. And the reality is this is not needed. We're opted in because it's state law. So if this is a bad resolution, it's written poorly, what we need to be voting on is the zoning and the tax, not this resolution. So if you want to table, I would say I'd make a motion to do away with it altogether.
Then make that motion.
All right, I make the motion to remove this completely.
A motion to remove from the agenda.
Yes, the banning of recreational.
Second by Ms. Cowan. We have a motion on the floor. Any discussion on Mr. Mustis?
Yeah, I've been on this board a long time, and never in all my time here have I seen county board members make an attempt to not take something that can be voted on and that the public and our constituency would like to weigh in on, and just kind of have this kind of dictatorial kind of attitude. We're not voting on it. We have the right, within the state legislation, it gives us the right to consider opting out. You know, these attempts to not bring it for a vote and let the public weigh in is something that I really have not seen in all my years here. We have always taken our votes, taken our lumps, taken our praises, and this is something I just absolutely can't support. And for those who may want to support this, all I can say is really shame on you all. That's it, Mr. Executive. Thank you.
Any other discussion about Mr. Ballich?
Yeah, the state of Illinois passed the law to make it legal to do marijuana anywhere in the state. Then they said that we have to opt in, I should say, we're automatically opted in unless we opt out. Well, if you look around, there's numerous counties and cities that are all saying no because they find it's not in their best interest. So we're not going to have a discussion and we're just going to go ahead. It appears to me like we're going to be a bunch of cowards and just cave to what the state of Illinois is dictating because they can. They give all kinds of unfunded things that affect the fire departments, the schools, the county, and nobody says nothing because they don't have the money to pay for it, but they're in their godly heart, they think they're doing the right thing by imposing things on us. And we should have the courage to stand up and say yes or no.
Ms. Ogala?
Yeah, so what I wanted to say is I've been on the board, this is my year now, and we have always listened to our state's attorney, and our state's attorney has always done a great job at providing good guidance to us as to what should be done. I think that we should be listening to what our state's attorney has said to us, and we should be voting appropriately. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Tuminello?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Earlier this year, the state of Illinois became the only state to approve cannabis, to legalize it recreationally, without communicating or asking the public for any input. There was no referendum, just like the other states have done. And now essentially, if we just remove this, we're doing the same thing at the county level. We're not allowing the representatives who represent the very people that voted them in to even cast an up or down vote. I would also suggest that we stand with the state's attorney and go with their advice. But I do want to thank Speaker Winfrey, Mr. Brooks, and Mr. Van Dyne, because without their courage in the executive committee to at least be able to allow us to have this discussion, it would never even been here. It would have just disappeared and gone away. So I do appreciate that opportunity, and I would respectfully ask my colleagues to vote against this ridiculous proposal.
Mr. Frizzalone?
Thank you. I think it's utterly cowardly to not be able to stand up and vote. If you're for it, fine. If you're against it, fine as well. But we're not going to take a vote. I'm here to represent my constituents. My constituents, Homer Glen, New Lenox, and Lockport, all have opted out. Apparently, Rachel, you're not concerned about your constituents because Lockport and Crest Hill have opted out already. I'm here to vote on issues that my constituents are concerned about. To not let us have a vote on this is ridiculous. I agree with Mary. Because of procedures, we have to table it, but we need to vote on this and at least have a say. We may not opt out, but if you're for it, stand up and say you are then and vote. Thank you.
Mr. Karolaitis?
Yeah, this is the second time I've made this statement regarding this issue, and it's abdicating my responsibility to my constituents, to the Will County citizens, to the state of Illinois. I don't understand that statement, and to me, I don't want to address it in a personal way, but to me, that just advocates our responsibility, and we took an oath here to represent our community, and our community expects, at the very least, that of every one of us. So I too will agree with the state's attorney to look at this a little further and to have a vote so that our members, our community in 13 districts of Will County have a say through their elected officials. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Trainier,
you got it. I'm going to stand up per your request. I am in favor. A growing body of research has shown that Colorado cities and towns that decided to permit regulated cannabis businesses have increased their housing values by 6%. Rising property values benefit a broad range of stakeholders, from homeowners who experience an increase in their net worth to local governments and school districts that rely on property taxes to provide public services. I have no problem standing up and saying how I feel. If we are going to ban cannabis, then I believe we should ban alcohol. I think we should ban all prescription drugs that are more than 30 at a time if it's an opioid. I mean, we could keep going and try to continue to regulate and legislate morality. We could even make it mandatory that people attend church on Sunday. But I don't really think that's where we want to go. Happy to have a vote today. In my opinion, this is a Scribner's error. I don't know what the definition of that is, but clearly you guys want to have a vote today. I'm okay with voting. We don't have to have the actual final opt-out language correct, I don't believe, to vote. I don't have a problem voting. I don't have a problem representing the people in my community.
Denise wants to speak too. Denise wants to speak too. I don't know why she's not on there.
Mary?
I would just, if you want to have a vote, fine, have a vote, but you're not voting on the resolution. You'd be voting to opt out or not to opt out with a resolution to come next month.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Ventura?
Yeah, so to a couple comments, the fact that you're saying that you can't represent via vote, the vote is on the zoning. That is what you're opting out of, is the zoning.
No, no.
You're not opting out of smoking marijuana or allowing people to smoke marijuana. Let's be very clear on that. That is not what these cities are opting out of. They're opting out of the growing aspects of it. They're opting out of the sales and the dispensaries. That happens through zoning. So to say you don't have a representative vote here, that is inaccurate. Also, we've been discussing this since May. So to say we haven't had an opportunity to discuss it is inaccurate. We have brought it up at several meetings, including the Committee of the Whole. As far as following the law, that is not caving. That is following the law. We are upholding the Constitution of Illinois, which we all took an oath to do so. So let's not play games and make this sound like it's something it's not. And Mr. Frizzlone, to your point, I received 4 messages to me. One from Vince and Joliet asked me to opt in or to allow it. One from September in Plainfield. She also said to allow it. Missy in unincorporated Will County also told me to allow it. Nicole in Lockport told me to allow it. Not a single one of my constituents has sent me an email asking the opposite of this. And earlier this week, Joliet did vote to allow it in their area. So I am representing my constituents, and I'm happy to vote yes on this and opt in and follow the state law, and I have made no secret of that from day one. And Jackie is right. There is a lot of data that is out there that is accurate from other states, and we need to have the money to enforce this, and we need to have the zoning that's appropriate. So if you want to vote on the zoning and the taxing, I'm more than happy to. But if you want to play games with language and pushing this and tabling this, I'm not playing those games. And I'm not going to allow you to either. Thank you.
Mary, did you want to comment? No.
No, I don't want to comment. It was a mistake, and I apologize for the mistake. There's, as far as I'm concerned, very little conversation that has happened at the meetings. There was a meeting of the whole, but it was just talking about the medical effects and the legislation itself. Had it not been for the state's attorney, there would not have even been the additional, we stepped in and asked that additional stuff be put on the agenda. I asked months ago that we be given clear direction, and we have spent tons of time trying to guess how this is going to come down. We did our utmost to do based on messages that were coming through to us, and I apologize that it didn't come down cleanly. But it is not any intent to undermine anything. It is just trying to figure out what this board is going to do.
Thank you, Mary. Ms. Ocala?
Yeah, I want to thank Mary again for iterating that, and I think that we should take her advice, as our speaker has also requested we do, that we table this, we go back, we work on it, and we bring back something that we can all clearly vote on versus something that's not quite right, because it's 2 different things. And then I want to remind everybody at the NACO conference in Vegas this past July, I did attend the conference on cannabis, and one of the things that they did caution us about is don't rush in. Take the time, see how things are going. You can always opt in again. So they said to take the time and be cautionary. They said there are other issues that will be worked out throughout the state that we haven't seen. We haven't seen how this will work in our state. We will see that because there have been several counties and cities that are supporting full sales, growing, and dispensing of marijuana. I think that's something to look at. I attended the NACO conference. The people on the board there were from the state of Washington, Vegas, Colorado, California. These are all states where they have experienced the use of recreational marijuana for many years. They gave us that advice, and I think that's some advice that we should take. It would make sense to, first off, table it, as our speaker has requested, and second, to wait and see how things are going in other parts of the state, and then we can have all those little things worked out before we go and do something here in Will County. Thank you.
Mr. Muster?
I'd like to kind of mention about how much discussion has taken place in public forums. There's been very little here. We did have one, as State's Attorney Tatro mentioned, that we talked about the effects of marijuana, what we thought the impact might be. We never talked about opting out, that I recall. Now, last month, we were supposed to have a committee of the whole, where I thought we were going to have this discussion of opt-in and opt-out. It was canceled, so the discussion couldn't take place. I think there's been an assertive effort not to have discussion on opting out by some. So to say that people have had all these opportunities, they have not. The only opportunity they've had is to weigh in a little bit about zoning, because the Planning and Zoning Commission did hold a public hearing Tuesday on the zoning. But it was made clear by the Planning and Zoning Commission that this was not about opting out. They could make comment about zoning related to cannabis sales. But they were told, even though the chairman allowed them to come up and say they wanted to opt out, they were not given, because that was the incorrect forum for them to do that. So I think that we need to have a public hearing on this, where everybody could weigh in. I'm okay with tabling it or voting on it. But if you...
yeah, okay.
Well, it could be either one. I mean, but...
In November, we were going to have an airport committee of the whole. We did not have that.
Yeah, well, then, of course, whatever it was, there's never been a discussion, one discussion, I'll go that far, there hasn't been one discussion by a committee or this board about opting out. That's correct. So to state there's been all these opportunities, that's just incorrect about the opting out portion. So, you know, the problem we have here, we can't just take our time, because come January 1st, it takes hold. You know, I mean, so we don't have a lot of time. I think after January 1st, they'll have the ability. I don't know how this is all going to work. And let me also point out, and this may be, you can look at it either way, the total licenses that are going to be allowed in Will County for dispensaries, and I'm not sure how it works for, and I do think we need to address the craft growers and the processors, because, you know, I don't know what that number is, or if it was limited. Certainly, I think we need to limit it. But it's estimated that we'd get 8% of the licenses in Will County. Folks, that's 4. And that's for everybody, incorporated, unincorporated, 4. You know, which means you're not going to get a lot of revenue out of this. The expenses, how we're going to be impacted at the health department, within our court system and law enforcement system, is going to far outweigh any money you think you're going to get. So, you know, I do think we should take this for a vote. You know, obviously, we could do it today, and then we'd have to come back with a corrected referendum. Resolution, rather, I'm sorry, resolution. So, or we could just wait for the corrected resolution and do it next month. But to just freeze people out and not stand up and not giving county board members the ability to represent their community on an up or down vote, I think is not necessarily the...
Ms. Berkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Mary, I'd like to thank you and the state's attorney for all of your efforts to bring this forward to us. I greatly appreciate it. It's a complicated subject, and it's been so fluid with all the changes coming in, but I did want to recognize that, and I do appreciate that. If we were to proceed with a vote on a resolution, I believe that there may be some speakers here, and I would like to ask if we could hear them
if all the county board members that have want to speak, then that we were going to open the people that are here to speak. I get the opportunity, but I got a list of county board members that are wanting to continue to speak about the issue. Okay? Thank you. Next up, Beth Rice.
Thank you, County Executive. First of all, I'm pro-voting today. I do want to take a vote. And I was also wanting to make sure that the speakers are heard that have come to speak on this issue, and I wanted to ask you, is it necessary for someone to suspend the rules for the timing of the public comment, or is it not?
Yeah, it's not, no need of making a motion to,
Thank you.
so it's a,
That's all for me.
I guess it's a call from the chair. Mary?
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Cowan?
Thank you, Mr. Executive. May I address the state's attorney and get some clarification about what we're actually talking about? Could you explain to me what the difference would be from tabling the issue to removing it from the agenda? And if we're going, I guess the heart of my question is, if the referendum that's on the agenda, the resolution, sorry, that's on the agenda today is going to change, if we remove it entirely, we could put a referendum to a vote. A resolution, sorry, I'm getting all my R's confused. Up for a vote at a later time. Could you kind of explain the difference between these options?
There are several options the county board can take a vote to remove it from the agenda, at which point it might just die. Doesn't have to come back, doesn't have to go back to committee.
But it could
just die. But it could.
Okay.
It could. You could vote to move it, send it back to committee, and then it could be discussed at committee, and then a clear decision of what's moving forward be made at committee. And then maybe vote on it next month, maybe not if it doesn't come back out of committee. You could vote to table it, which would bring the subject right back up next month.
Automatically.
Automatically, although, depending, I think there really needs to be conversation.
But Mary, if you table, you're just table the resolution as it is and to bring back up.
It would be, and then the subject matter on the agenda for next month would be more carefully crafted.
Or we could vote on it today, and let's say we voted no on the resolution, there's still opportunity for discussion about the zoning and the taxation, correct?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Ms. Winfrey?
Mr. Executive. I know that there's a lot of passion around this issue on both sides of it, in, out, up, down, sideways, recreational, not recreational, and I understand that, I accept that. My preference, though, would be to have this go to committee, because that allows us to clean the language up so that we start with the right wording rather than guessing or figuring out after the fact, and also then that allows us to have a public hearing. At the zoning commission the other night, there are a number of people who wanted to speak on the issue, have not had that chance. I know board members have had a chance, have had public meeting, or have had committee of the whole, rather. The public has not had the chance to weigh in yet on what we would do with this. And I think that's a thing we should consider. I would like for us to send this to committee, get the language straight, host a public meeting at our public hearing at our December meeting, and then do the vote.
I'll make a motion to table. Second.
Whoa, stop.
No, the motion is
There's already a motion on the floor.
To remove it from the agenda. Tabling motion is always in order and no discussion. So, is there a second for the tabling? Seconded by Mr. Balich. Madam Clerk, call the roll. This is the table.
Point of clarification, are we tabling her motion or the original?
Mr. Moose
There's one already on the
has
floor.
brought up tabling, and there's no discussion, and automatic vote. At this to the table. Yes is to table. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
I believe there is a motion already on the floor prior to this.
Is everybody clear?
Call the roll.
All right, here we go. Ferry,
Yes?
Frizzalone,
Yes, voting to table.
The motion is to table.
Okay.
Ogala,
Yes.
Newquist,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Mustis, Rice, Harris,
Yes.
Trainier,
No.
Fritz, Mueller,
Yes.
Gould,
Yes.
Van Dyne,
Yes.
Balich,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Ventura,
No.
Dollinger,
Yes.
Markham,
No.
Berkowitz, Cowan,
No.
Tumanello,
Yes.
Weigel,
Yes.
Crolitis,
Yes.
Winfrey.
Yes.
20 affirmative, 5 negative.
20 affirmative. The resolution had been tabled. Now, I got the list of county board, but it's irrelevant now to have this discussion from the county board members. But
We have public signed up.
anybody from, we got people from here that came today that wanted to voice their opinion on this issue, and we will open it up and have the people come down, but only you get 3 minutes to speak. And I ask you, don't be redundant. If you got some new thing to talk about and some new information, okay. Nikki Serbaran, Nikki, first one.
Good morning, Mr. Executive. Good morning, board members.
Nikki.
My name is Nikki Serban. I'm from Joliet, Will County Board, District 8. And I'm speaking today because I believe in facts over fear, and I urge the board to support recreational cannabis sales in Will County. Cannabis has never killed anyone. Black market cannabis vape products that use the dangerous chemical called vitamin C acetate have. Alcohol is far more dangerous than cannabis and kills nearly 90,000 people a year, yet alcohol consumption is not only permitted, but promoted and often celebrated while our children watch professional sporting events and the like. During the 1920s and 30s, the Mexican Revolution caused a spike in Mexican immigration to the U.S. Although cannabis was in loads of American products for hundreds of years, when Mexican immigrants started smoking it, reefer madness was born. Made worse when the Federal Bureau of Narcotics came up with a strategy to rename cannabis marijuana to stoke white Americans' fears of the Mexican people. The term marijuana is rooted in racism and why I refer to its proper name as cannabis, and why I respectfully ask the board, if you do change the language, to consider that change as well. Nixon's aide, when asked about the reasoning behind the war on drugs, quote, said, "We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin and criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about drugs? Of course we did," unquote. Maybe that's why the war on drugs saw people of color incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white people for the exact same crime. With heroin becoming a national epidemic, it's worth noting that states that have legalized cannabis have experienced a 25% reduction in opioid overdoses, not only because cannabis provides a safer alternative to opioids, but also minimizes the violent opioid withdrawal symptoms. Maybe that's why opioid prescriptions are down in states that have legalized cannabis, and why pharmaceutical companies and doctors strongly oppose its legalization. People do self-medicate in various ways, and while that is not ideal, why not offer a safer alternative? Cannabis consumption does not lead to physiological addiction, and that's the fact. Cannabis legalization has provided states with a reduction in violent crime. All of this is provable fact. Additional tax revenue, a reduction in teen use, increased property values, and safer alternatives to dangerous intoxicants. Let's not fail to mention job creation. Cannabis legalization will create over 300,000 jobs by 2022. More than half of Americans have tried cannabis, and 33 million Americans, or 1 in 10, report to using it regularly. A Pew Research poll that was just released a couple weeks ago showed public support of legalization at 66%. How that breaks down, 76% of millennials support it, about 64% of Generation X and baby boomers support it, but the silent generation, who endured years of reefer madness misinformation campaigns, only supported at 35%. But what this does mean is that 2/3 of folks born after 1945 support the complete legalization of cannabis. The cannabis plant has been studied beyond the U.S., but all around the world, and the facts are in. The cannabis plant in its various forms is an anticonvulsant, antipsychotic, antioxidant, antidepressant, anti-inflammatory, and fights nausea. It is actually factually said to help cancer, Alzheimer's, long-term pain, HIV, headaches, lupus, high blood pressure, Parkinson's, diabetes, Crohn's.
Bring your comments.
Yes, sir. I'm nearly, I promise I'm done. Nearly, sir.
Okay.
Autism, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. Some of you in this room may suffer from these various conditions and would be well served to learn how cannabis can help you. In closing, cannabis can kill you in the following ways. You could choke while shoving handfuls of it in your mouth. A crate of cannabis can fall on you and kill you. A serial killer named cannabis can kill you. But the ways cannabis can't kill you: smoking it, vaping it, or consuming cannabis edibles. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, thank you. Next up, Ms. Messina.
Good morning, board members.
Good morning.
Unlike some other people, I'm very nervous about talking in front of everybody, but I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I believe in opting out. My name is Salvi Messina. I'm a Will County resident in Naperville, Illinois. I'm a mother of 2 high school boys. I respectfully request that you opt out in allowing the sale of recreational marijuana in Will County. I'm coming to you to think about the effects of normalizing another behavioral altering substance on our youth. A recent study showed increase in ingestions of marijuana by children in the U.S. after the legalization of marijuana.
Before 2009, there was no significant change in the number or rate of marijuana ingestions. However, in 2009 to 2017, the mean annual increase was 27% per year, over which 70% of those ingestions occurred in states with legalized marijuana. This tells us kids are getting marijuana. So what happens when kids take it? Structural, brain, and cognitive effects. That's what. These effects can be observed in association with just 1 or 2 incidents of adolescent marijuana use. Then this is according to a published study in the Journal of Neuroscience in 2019. I also found the following from the Substance and Mental Health Services Administration website. It is addictive, and when they start before the age of 18, the rate of addiction is 1 in 6. Marijuana can cause permanent IQ loss as much as 8 points when people start using it at a young age. People who drive under influence can kill people. And they can have dangerous effects on driving, like slower reactions, lane weaving, decreased coordination, difficult reacting to signals and signs on the road. Studies have linked marijuana to depression, anxiety, suicidal planning, and psychotic episodes. These are not good effects of marijuana. I'm not the only one who thinks marijuana is bad for our youth. On August 29, 2019, the United States Surgeon General Jerome Adams issued an advisory on marijuana. He emphasized the importance of protecting our nation from the health risks of marijuana use in adolescence and during pregnancy. Recent increases in access to marijuana and in its potency, along with the misperceptions of safety of marijuana endanger our most precious resource, our nation's youth. No amount of marijuana used during pregnancy or adolescence is known to be safe. Until and unless more is known about the long-term impact, the safest choice for pregnant women and adolescents is not to use marijuana. So I agree with the Surgeon General. So please, Board, do not legalize recreational marijuana sales in Will County, or our youth will think it's okay to use it. So I'm going to go old school. Just say no to drugs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Mom Brow. Is it Real?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing the public comments today in the midst of the confusion and the language issues that we had. My name is Murray Briel. I'm a Joliet resident, a neighbor of yours in Will County, the owner of Phoenix nonprofit youth soccer travel club. We give kids a chance to play competitive travel soccer at recreational prices. I'm also a coach at a middle school in Plainfield. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I have 2 teen boys and a preteen boy. And I've worked with children and families for the better part of 20 years. It's very important that we've had an opportunity to speak. And I'd like to thank you guys for having the opportunity. Am I going in and out here? Oh, good, because I'm really bad with microphones, so thank you. While required, I know you have to have a required public comment section. It speaks to your forward thinking that you've allowed Will County to become a leader in our state and our nation. Prohibition groups like Opt Out travel all over the state advocating against recreational sale. Sorry. The outdated and incorrect information that they give is harmful to not only us, but our children. I'd like to take a minute to dispel some of those myths, some of which is the most recent research that's been available to be found, including studies from November in Colorado of last year and February of this year. Myth 1, it's a gateway drug. It's a very common myth to say that this will lead you to other drugs. Colorado mandated study of October 2018, the impacts of marijuana legalization in Colorado, as well as the February 19th research and report of the American Journal of Psychology state there is no proof of recreational and medical users of cannabis moving on to harder drugs. Myth 2, it kills brain cells. The Journal of Neuroscience in July of this year just reported the most recent findings, and those findings are that showed absolutely no differentiation between the weight, and the size of brains of cannabis users and non-cannabis users. The Harvard data that had been previously reported did not take into consideration alcohol use, socioeconomic background, gender, and age. Another myth we have is that DUIs and violent crimes are going to explode. This same Colorado study from 2018 shows that it has actually decreased the number of DUIs, while the number remained the same at 7% for marijuana-only DUIs. The number changed in a 15% drop in overall DUI cases. While we're talking about breaking the law, a recent FBI study noted that the legalization reduces crime rates. 25 to 30% of all violent crimes are related to alcohol. The report noted that the calming effects of cannabis makes it less likely to engage in violence. There's a mayor, a Canton mayor, who has spent 40 years in law enforcement. He's down the road from us. Kent McDowell said, "I have never in 40 years investigated nor seen a case of marijuana overdose." Another argument is not in my backyard, right? I say yes, in my backyard. One of the areas impacted is Crystal Lawns. They're my neighbors. Since multiple cities surrounding them have already opted out, it is only fair that they have the opportunity to purchase recreational marijuana in that area. Several areas of the unincorporated fall into the classification that fell into the war on drugs, that the state has allowed for a certain percentage of licenses to be given to those who are in disenfranchised areas. As I'd said, one of those is Crystal Lawns. 70% of those living in the unincorporated area are in areas like Preston Heights, Crystal Lawns, the neighborhood right below where the river is as you go south. I can't think of the name of it. So this new law, almost. This new law affords us a chance to grow and sell, be held for those communities that were hit the hardest by the prohibition of drugs. It means that as a forward-thinking county, you can be on the front lines of economic development and social justice reform. By not voting in favor, you are limiting entrepreneurship, economic development, and community stability. I think that Mayor Kent McDowell said it best when he said you can either have a well-regulated industry or you can have the drug dealer down the street. The drug dealer doesn't check for IDs, and he certainly doesn't know where his product is coming from. I believe one of the members of this board actually has an interest in the cannabis industry. It would behoove them, and of course they wouldn't want anyone to feel that they were not giving that opportunity to those who have been penalized by our war on drugs. Finally, there's a myth that says kids will do it more, right? That is entirely untrue. The mandatory study in Colorado reports there is no increase in youth use, and actually instances of youth use before the age of 13 dropped from 9.2% to 6.5% over 2 years, from 2015 to 17. It has a positive effect. I know we're worried that kids can use it, but if we demystify cannabis, if we explain to them what it is, then they have a better option of making the right choices. I'm almost finished, and I'd just like to give you a story. I have 3 boys. My 17-year-old boy came home one day, and he went out with some friends and sent me a text. "Mom, call me." It's our code, which means I have to call him and yell at him so that he can come home and he doesn't feel awkward. So I called him and said, "Get home right now." Had a fit. He came home and I said, "Why did you leave?" He said, "Because the girls in the car were vaping. And they parked in the Target parking lot, and I didn't feel that was right." Now, please keep in mind, I've been open with my children about cannabis from the time they were little. We talk about the various kinds, the importance of knowing what it comes from, its purity, the effects that it can have, and the decisions that it can make in your life, and the consequences of those.
Thank you for your comments.
So thank you so much. Please, you can send a message to all the Will County residents that you trust them to make their own decisions, that you want them to have social justice reform, and that you believe in allowing cannabis sales in Will County. Thank you.
Next up is Rihanna Tree, yes, correct.
Good morning. My name is Rihanna Tyree. I am not part of a national opt-out movement. I've lived in Will County for 52 years. I don't have a lot of facts and figures because, as we've heard, they contradict one another. I have personal experience as a school teacher in Joliet Public Schools District 86 for 31 years. Every one of those 31 years, we taught health, even to kindergarten, when I taught kindergarten for 15 years at Park School. We taught that a healthy lifestyle is the way to be successful. Mind-altering substances of any kind are not healthy for children, period. This legalization, I was not given a vote. Nobody heard my voice on that at Springfield. They wanted to do that their own way, and they did. I do appreciate being allowed to have a voice today. I wish I could vote on a referendum. It would be much easier for me to accept whatever the vote would be if I am allowed to have a vote in that. Since I'm not, I want to speak, and thank you for allowing me to. I cannot accept that we throw another mind-altering substance at our children. They have enough to contend with already. This is just not acceptable to me. And I hope it's not acceptable to you either. Thank you.
Thank you. Marilyn Gallagher.
She was here before.
Good morning. My name is Marilyn Gallagher. I've lived in Will County for over 40 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Dr. Kathleen Burke spoke to this board in October regarding the health impact of cannabis use. Before I retired, I worked in substance abuse prevention for 11 years. One of the things that we would show students is the scans of the frontal lobe of the brain of frequent marijuana users that revealed permanent structural changes. 1 in 10 people who use marijuana will become addicted if they start before age 18. The addiction rate is 1 in 6, and a previous speaker mentioned that. Prolonged marijuana use can cause permanent IQ loss of as much as 8 points. These are 2019 scientifically verifiable test results. They are not scare tactics from the 1950s, as has been previously suggested. I've heard people come to this podium and say that no one has ever died from marijuana. That's simply not true. Results of epidemiology studies from 2013 and 2017 show that alcohol and marijuana, each separately and together, play a significant role in fatal car crash initiation. It is a known fact that THC in marijuana slows response time and stays in your system for a prolonged period. Thousands die each year in the U.S. as a consequence of marijuana-impaired driving. For the past 5 years, impact surveys done in Colorado, the first state to allow recreational, show traffic deaths in which drivers tested positive for marijuana have increased 109% between 2013 and 2018. I have personally been sent to the hospital twice on a stretcher from drivers in Will County that were distracted or drug impaired. You either accept these research-verified facts as a truth, or you dismiss them for one of 2 reasons. You smoke weed and don't want to change your behavior, so you deny the truth, or you think that for our state to solve their fiscal problems, instead of cutting spending, we should encourage and tax unhealthy behavior. Even in liberal California, and more recently in Michigan, 80% of communities have opted out of marijuana sales. To the argument that allowing recreational will prevent purchase of dangerous black market product, this has not been the case. In fact, black market sales have soared since recreational was available in California, since the legal outlets have to sell at a higher price due to the tax. Just because we are promised a certain percentage of this tax money doesn't mean we will ever actually get it. Look at the lottery and gambling that were supposed to be such a boon for the fiscal situation in Illinois. As long as we refuse to cut spending, none of this will make any difference. We need to send Springfield a message. Just because they can't, we are capable of making good, rational decisions for the health and safety of our citizens. Finally, most of the towns and villages of Will County have already voiced their opinion. Communities who have opted in will already have access. Communities that have opted out include New Lenox, Crest Hill, Mokina, Frankfort, Lockport, Bolingbrook, Homer Glen, Plainfield, and Wilmington. This is the will of the people. If you allow a dispensary to be built right on the edge of any of these towns, you are flying in the face of their expressed vote. For board members who vote to push this on residents who don't want it anywhere near their homes, we will remember. Please vote to opt out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Pastor Bernard.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. I'm Pastor Rick Barnard. I'm an elder at Pathway Church in Shorewood. I'm representing the church. I have unanimous support of the pastor, the senior pastor, and the elders there. First of all, I want to I have a handout. If possible, I would like to hand it out. This is from my article in the Joliet Herald News. It's not the full article. It was in the opinion page of the Joliet Herald News, September 24th on a Tuesday. Some of you may have seen it. And I want to just make special reference to the second paragraph of this report. This report, there's been a lot of facts thrown around here. This report is in the second paragraph of this article, and this is only part of my article that was printed. Actually, there was more printed. Is from the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. That was established by the White House Office of National Drug Control in 1996. So this is a national established, this isn't some private company, this is a national. And here's what's happened in Colorado since legalization. Legalized recreational marijuana in 2014. Marijuana-related traffic deaths increased 151%, while all Colorado traffic deaths increased 35%. Traffic deaths involving drivers who tested positive for marijuana more than doubled from 55 in 2013 to 138 people killed in 2017. Also, violent crime increased 18.6% and property crime increased 8.3% from 2013. In addition, the yearly rate of emergency department visits related to marijuana increased 52% from 2012 to 2016, and the yearly rate of marijuana-related hospitalizations increased 148% during that same period. That's from a national, it's not from a private company, that's from the, like I said, the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Traffic Area established by the White House. Those are some facts on it. One of the problems when we talk about marijuana is the THC, the mind-altering component, the THC, is so much higher now. Back in the 1970s, it was like 2%. And then average in 1990s was 3.8%. 2014, it was 12.2%. And recently, I talked to the education and outreach man from Greenhouse. They have 4 medical marijuana places here, and one of them's in Morris. They're supposed to start selling recreational marijuana in January. I asked him just a couple weeks ago, what is the THC factor of the recreational marijuana you're going to start selling? 30%. Do you know 30%? That's 7 to 8 times the THC factor in the 1990s. We do not understand what this is going to do to adults as well as young people that high. And the other thing, people talk about regulation. Guess what? The THC factor is not regulated. There is nothing in this law that regulates the THC factor. It could be as high as 50%, 70%. There is no law. And the problem is they can take this THC, not just in marijuana, but now, because this legalizes taking THC and put it in candy and stuff. It can be all kinds of sweet products or whatever with high THC factors that will really alter the minds and lead to schizophrenia of many people and psychosis. I wish that every one of you would get this book that just came out this year. This guy was pro-marijuana. He was pro-marijuana. His name is Alex Berenson. He was a New York Times reporter. He's not a conservative. He was a libertarian on marijuana. And he was also a novelist. And he wrote this book, Tell Your Children the Truth About Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. He has done such a thorough job. I challenge you all to read this before you make any decision. And he refers one thing, he says, the National Academy of Medicine in 2017 came out with a report and said the committee found strong evidence that marijuana causes schizophrenia and some evidence that it widens bipolar disorder and increases the risk of suicide, depression, and society anxiety disorder. Cannabis use is likely to increase the risk of developing schizophrenia and other psychosis. The higher the use, the greater the risk. And with that high THC, you know, it's just going to be worse and worse.
Let's play in
right. Okay, so anyway, I just encourage you, if you have any kind of an open mind, and I know there's probably a lot of closed minds, this guy, just read this book. I encourage you to read it. It just came out this year. It covers all the facts and statistics in there, and thank you.
Thank you for your comments. That's the list that I have that it's signed. Anybody in the public want to talk about the issue? Anybody else? You can come on down.
It's tabled. Yeah, just doing public comments.
Hello, I am Jackson Wilkins. I'm a high school student at Plainfield North in District 202. And there's been a lot of talk about marijuana or cannabis and how the youth use it. But I want to talk from experience as a person who is living that life right now, is that alcohol, nicotine, tobacco are all far more used through Juuls than marijuana. Alcohol is much more easily accessible to the students via their parents, drawers, cabinets that alcohol is stored. And yes, marijuana or cannabis does harm the brain for young people, but that's every drug that exists affects young people. We're not saying that young people should use it because that's why we should legalize it. It should still be taught that they should not use it, should never use it. It should only be given to people of the appropriate age that is set, same as alcohol. And that's all I can think of right now. I'm very nervous. Thank you.
Thank you very much to come up and make a comment. Aaron, come.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. My name is Erin Gallagher, and again, I wasn't planning on speaking. I'm a mom. I have 2 small children. I don't smoke pot, and I don't encourage children smoke pot. I don't think there's anybody in this room here who does. So I'd like to make sure that we're separating out the issue of legislating to children. Obviously, we need to zone it carefully, and we need to keep it out of the hands of children. This is very hard for me. I'm here because I am also the aunt of a 21-year-old boy who committed suicide that was drug-related. And there isn't a person in this room who has paid a higher price than my only sister and my family, and I consider myself among that group. I have every intention of raising my children to not use drugs and to not smoke pot. I am here because I support opt-in. I think that we need an opportunity for regulation, quality control, ingredients control. I think, even though I had absolutely nothing to do with the state legislation and I had absolutely nothing to do with the legalization of this drug, it's here now, and this is what we have to work with. I think that protecting our children is important, but this is about adult use. This is not about children. You all do not have before you whether or not people can smoke it or consume it. That's out of your purview. It's out of my purview. We can have our opinions about it, but we're talking about how we're going to protect our children, and that's through zoning. And I think that allowing access for adults is only going to help the quality and help eliminate a lot of the things that affected my family and affected my nephew. So I encourage you, we can't say opt-in because legally we're in. We're here. It's what it is. And I'm here representing myself right now in this microphone. I do have other interests here, but these are my words and my attitudes and my opinions alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Anybody else from the public want to make comment? Well, thank all you coming, being here and then have voice your opinion. So, moving on, Ms. Ventura.
Yes, I wanted to correct the record. When I looked through my work emails, I did not have any emails voting no, but I do have one in my personal account, so I want to just be fair and accurate in that. Marvin had asked me to vote no. He lives in the city of Joliet, and to Murray's point, Crystal Lawns is in my district. That's it.
Thanks for that information. Mr. Tuminello?
Thank you. We have a lot of respect for our state's attorney and for Mary and the information that she brought forward. You've always steered us in the right direction. But it's interesting to me when I sit back and really just listen to the entire issue is that we kind of are having a little bit of disregard for your office. The individual, Dr. Kathleen Burke, gave a presentation. She talked to us about the effects. We also had the Health Department come before us. And the Health Department came before us, Sue Olnick, and was talking about her objection as well, and what they felt about legalizing or staying in the program of what it was going to do and what kind of effects it was going to have. But I think the most interesting thing that I saw was a letter from one of the state representatives that voted on this bill. There was a legislator that sent out a letter to some of the mayors in their high crime areas. It was confirmed by Nikki at his state office. And in the letter, it talks about, as you know, House Bill 1438, legalizing cannabis, blah, 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 and it talks about age and the amount that they could possess and medical won't be affected. But I think it was very interesting, the last paragraph in the letter that states, furthermore, these considerations in mind, I am urging you to utilize the opt-out provision of this bill for your local municipality. This will require your municipality to pass an ordinance or resolution opting out of the cannabis legislation. I have concerns about how the bill may bring a rise in crime to your community, as well as how the perception of your city might be affected by an increase of recreational use of cannabis. There are important factors that were not considered when the bill was going through the legislative process. Thank you for your time and consideration. It is my hope that you will consider opting out of House Bill 1438. And I just think, sometimes when you make a vote in Springfield, maybe you sit back and think about some of the effects after you understand it, and then maybe have a change of heart. That's That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Mr. Frizzalone.
Yeah, I'm going to parrot a little bit of what Ray said, but I think if we are bringing this back next month and we're going to have a public hearing, it would be nice to hear from the Sheriff's Department, from the Health Department, and from Kathleen Burke one more time so we can get their opinion again, all in that group. I would hope after that we would opt out, and then we can go to a referendum, if you want to go to a referendum, to see what the whole of Will County wants to do. But I still think, and I had said this much earlier, the same as the gas tax, it's time we start asking the constituents what their feeling is. We get 4 letters pro and 2 letters con. That's not a reason to be pro. We need to get what all of our constituents want. I think we're seeing a little bit of that by the votes in the villages, but what better way than to go direct to the constituent and ask them to vote on it? Thank you.
Okay, back to Chairman Denise.
Thank you, Mr. Executive.
Jackie, Ms. Trainier.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. I think the idea of going to a referendum is fine as long as we're willing to fund it. I think education has to go with it. If the other side of the aisle would like to do a referendum, I'd like to see them put a very large amount of money into the budget to pay for public education in terms of the issue, because I don't, and I'm not even sure we could agree on what that public education should be. But clearly, just putting something on the ballot, people have far more important things to deal with every day in their lives, putting bread on the table, getting to their jobs, dealing with their cars, dealing with their schools, their kids. They have a lot of things going on in their lives, not to mention their own health care. We would have to do a full court press to educate people, and that would take a considerable amount of money, if that's the direction we want to go. I think the voters know that the state legalized cannabis, and the voters, if they didn't like it, can vote no against their in the next election against their legislator. I just don't see it. I know cigarettes are bad. I probably touched my first cigarette when I was in the 2nd grade. I was sitting on the roof with my older sisters who had acquired their cigarettes from my mother. You know, it happens. It's a bad thing. They definitely are addictive, but any person has the choice to overcome an addiction if they so choose. And there are places to go to get help, and sometimes you just don't need help, you just need a little willpower. After 3 days, nicotine is out of your system. At that point, it becomes a mental health issue. It's not anything to do with your physical condition. So to say that people are addicted to marijuana, I think perhaps they have a mental health issue, not so much maybe a physical addiction to marijuana. And I don't think that disagreeing with Kathleen Burke shows any disrespect to her. She has her education and her background and her viewpoint and her ladder of inference just like I do. I respect her to the utmost. We just don't agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Balich.
Yeah, I agree with Mike Frizzalone. I think that we should ask the people, and when we don't go out to the people and ask them, they say 26 people on a board voted something that's going to affect everybody in the county in a big way, and we're not saying they can't smoke pot anymore because the state legalized it. So all we're talking about is opting in or opting out of dispensaries, which most of these cities are opting out. And there's a reason for that, because they're finding it's not in their best interest for whatever reason. So I think our county should at least, at minimum, go to a referendum and ask the people. And whatever the people want is what we should do. It's a representative democracy, so that means that we're supposed to vote what the people want. But in a case like this, how are we going to separate the wheat from the chaff? There's too many ideas floating around. So the best way to do it is to ask the people. And, hey, Larry, good to see you up there again.
Thank you. Okay. Now to Chairperson Denise Winfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Executive, and thank you to all our board members for their input. I appreciate that.
Look forward to having a very spirited discussion and public hearing at the December meeting. I know people think this is the end of it. We still have 28 resolutions to. I'll go to the next one, which is 19-324, authorizing a letter of support for the 12-year extension of the Joliet City Center TIF district, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Ferry. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Ms. Cowan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary?
Yeah, we need a roll call.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we need a roll call.
So here we go. Call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Ferry?
Yes.
Frissalone?
Yes.
Ogalla? Yes. Newquist? Yes. Cook?
Yes.
Mustis? Rice? Yes. Harris?
Yes.
Trainier?
Yes.
Fritz? Yes. Mueller?
Yes.
Gould?
Yes.
Van Dyne?
Yes.
Balich?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes.
Parker? Ventura? Dollinger? Markham?
Yes.
Berkowitz? Cowan? Tumanello? Weigel? Krolitis?
Yes.
Winfrey?
Yes.
24 affirmative, the motion has carried.
We have 19-325, authorizing renewal of professional services contract with Baxter and Woodman, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Rice. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Tumanello and second by Ms. Fritz. And all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
Thank you. We have 19-326, authorizing renewal of agreement with MAC Communications, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Drainier. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Gould, second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
We have 19-327, authorizing renewal of the professional services contract with Lois Mayer, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Ferry. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. McCowan, second by Mr. Harris. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
We have 19-328, I believe that this was in your packets this morning, authorizing agreement with Will County Center for Economic Development, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Markham. Any discussion? Any discussion? Moved. Previous roll by Ms. Parker, second by Ms. Fritz. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried. Oh. Okay.
We just can't get rolling. Which one is this?
No, she wants to be.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Ready?
Ms. Winfrey.
19-329, awarding the bid for elevator maintenance at various Will County office buildings, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Rice. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Berkowitz and second by Mr. Dollinger. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried. Do you want to be a yes on that?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. We have 19-330, awarding bid for sale of surplus vehicles, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, seconded by Mr. Van Dyne. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Gould, second by Ms. Ogalla. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
We have 19-331, declaring various equipment surplus and authorizing disposal, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Ventura. Any questions? Any questions? Previous roll by Mr. Balich, second by Ms. Berkowitz. All in favor, say by aye. Contrary, motion is carried.
19332, authorizing renewal of contract with Trezino Concrete for snow removal services at the Public Safety Complex, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, seconded by Mr. Markram. Previous roll by Ms. Parker, and second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried.
19333, awarding bid for gasoline and diesel fuel, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Cowan. Yeah. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Newquist. And all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
19334, appropriating funds for the payment of the county engineer's salary, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Ferry. Yeah. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Van Dyne, second by Ms. Cowan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
19335, correcting a scrivener's error on attachment to Resolution 19273 for condemnation cases regarding improvements on Laraway Road, County Board District 12, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Weigel. Discussion. Previous roll by Ms. Dollinger, second by Ms. Ogala. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
19336, extension of the term of the Board of Review, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Markham. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Parker, second by Ms. Berkowitz. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
We have 19337, authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with PACE for continuation of the service as the service provider for the Mobility Management Project, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, seconded by Ms. Newquist. Any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Cook, second by Ms. Cowan. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
We have 19338, authorizing an IGA with Crete Township for the Mobility Management Project, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Ogala. And any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Neer, second by Mr. Harris. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
19339 is an IGA with Frankfort Township for the Mobility Management Project, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Tumanello. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Ms. Parker, second by Mr. Weigel. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
19340, IGA with Monee Township for the Mobility Management Project, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Ogala. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Harris, second by Mr. Van Dyne. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
19341, IGA with Peatone Township for the Mobility Management Project, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. Ogala. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Ballas, second by Ms. Berkowitz. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
19342 is the IGA with Washington Township for the Mobility Management Project, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Markham. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. O'Gala, second by Mr. Frizzalone. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
And we have 19343, an IGA with Will Township for the Mobility Management Project, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Ms. O'Gala. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Rice, second by Ms. Ventura. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, none. Motion is carried.
19344, authorizing amendment to the agreement with Strand Associates Incorporated to complete a solar feasibility study, and I so move.
Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Ferry. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll, Mr. Brooks, and second by Ms. Rice. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
19345, authorizing DCEO grant for the opioid disaster recovery project. I believe this is also in your packets today, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Gould. Any discussion? Any discussion? Previous roll by Mr. Ballage, second by Ms. Dollinger. All in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion has carried.
We have 19346, repealing ordinance 1030, and this one needs some further work, so we do need to move to table.
You need to table it, or?
Yes, please.
Or just
I so move.
move to send back to committee?
Which preference? Okay, so we'll go back to committee on this one.
Motion to...
Motion to send back to committee.
Second. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll call by Ms. Cook and second by Ms. Berkowitz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
We have 19347, authorizing a lease agreement with Frankfort Township for the branch court facility. That resolution is also in your packets today, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Tumanello. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Weigel, second by Ms. Parker. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion carried.
We have 19348, transferring funds within the Health Department budget. We're starting to move into our typical year-end cleanups, rather, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Corralitis. Any discussion? And move previous roll call by Ms. Rice, and second by Mr. Van Dyne. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
19349, which is replacement hires for the Department of Transportation for the road maintenance crews, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Van Dyne. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll call by Mr. Harris, and second by Ms. Fritz. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion has carried.
19350, replacement hires for the LCC, the 911 Center, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Gould. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous roll by Ms. Cook, second by Ms. Mueller. Any discussion, any discussion? Previous, all in favor signify by aye, saying aye. And contrary, motion has carried.
And finally, we have 19351, which is replacement hires for the County Executive Human Resources. That's an HR specialist in risk management, and I so move.
Moved by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Markham. Any discussion, any discussions? Previous roll call by Ms. Parker, second by Ms. Berkowitz. All in favor saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried.
The next executive committee meeting is scheduled for December 5th at 10 a.m., and that concludes that report.
Thank you, Ms. Winfrey. Good.
Next, we have appointments by the county executive as attached to your packet. I so move.
Motion made by Ms. Winfrey, second by Mr. Markham. Previous roll call by Mr. Harris, second by Ms. Rice. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda, public comment. Anybody from the public that hasn't talked want to?
Ready? I know we're going to have a lot of county board.
Does the sheriff's office want to talk? Comments by county board members. Ms. Ogala.
Thank you. Unfortunately, the person who came and spoke about this publicly has left because they're exhausted, I'm sure. But I just wanted to mention that the Legislative Committee, and looking at our state and federal legislative agendas, one of the things we are looking at listing on there is looking to put the price, the taxes that do get paid for the residents on the pump.
Judy, pull your mic.
Couldn't hear me, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
One of the things on the Legislative Committee that we're looking at, I thought Jackie might have mentioned it, but she was mentioning all the other things that we had done, so that was great, is that we are looking to get the state to support putting the tax on the pumps, so the person getting taxed, remember Jack, knows. Oh, that will be going on our agenda for the federal, state, and local tax. So we are listening to the residents, and we are looking forward to supporting that. And the other thing is, I think that we should consider doing a referendum for the gas tax so that the residents get a position on this one way or the other. It would give them their voice, they'd be able to vote on it. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Ventura.
I wanted to go after Mimi, if that's possible.
Pardon me?
Well, I'll just go ahead and say my thing now, and then she can say hers. So on Tuesday, on November 26th, in Naperville, there will be a Hate Has No Home Here rally. Mimi will discuss the incident that this is in relation to. The rally will be at the Dandelion Fountain in front of the Nicholas Library at Webster and Jefferson Street there in Naperville. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Cowan.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Today, I need to talk about racism, and I am going to issue a warning that the events that I'm about to describe are quite disturbing. So if you are sensitive to this kind of thing, I guarantee you it will upset you. There have been some incidents in Naperville in the past few months, but the one I'm referring to happened last week. And this is something that happened at Naperville Central High School, which is located in DuPage County but serves students in Will County as well. In the middle of the school day, a white student took a photograph of a black student with whom he was familiar. He then posted that image on social media and on Craigslist with the title of "Slave for Sale, $1, Naperville." The rest of the content of the post included words that I cannot repeat that were clearly intended to invoke fear, discrimination, and the memory of slavery. The media has roundly downplayed this issue. They claim that the students were friends and that this was some sort of a joke. I was at a community event last night with the mother of the victim. These students were not friends. It was not a joke. They had grown up together, but they had drifted apart as sometimes friends do. The perpetrator received a 2-day in-school suspension, but has since been charged with a hate crime by Naperville police. It turns out that this was not an isolated incident. The white student had been tormenting the black student for weeks. He would go up to him in the hallway, interrupt his conversations with, "Hey, slave, how much do you cost?" He would frequently taunt him about the color of his skin and make other derisive comments. What I learned last night at our community meeting is that if you're surprised by this, you're probably white. This is not, unfortunately, an isolated event. These types of events are pervasive. Last night, I also learned that our community members of color are tired. They are exhausted from daily dealing with both direct and indirect racism. It affects their mental health, their emotional health, and eventually their physical health. Many members at this meeting recounted events that had happened to them in childhood. They had lasting negative effects from these events. The mother of this student told us that she was worried because she heard other people talk about how even at 70 years of age, they remembered something that happened when they were 10. She also told us that this event had broken her child, that she was afraid to leave him unattended. She was afraid to let him close his door to his room because she's afraid he's going to end his life. To my friends and colleagues who are people of color, I can only say I'm sorry for the burden that you continue to carry daily when it comes to racism. I am sorry that racism is so deeply intertwined with our culture in the United States that speaking out against racism is sometimes considered un-American. But more importantly, to my white friends and colleagues, you need to step up. Our black friends are exhausted. They are exhausted from lifetimes of carrying this burden. This is not isolated incidents. As I said, it's pervasive. It's also not just in Naperville, although those are where the stories have been coming from lately. It's in Wilmington, it's in Mokina, it's in New Lenox, it's throughout our county and our country. The time has come, in fact, we are well past the time, that white people need to take some of this burden off of people of color. Not only do we need to say something when we encounter even those subtle instances of racism, even when there isn't a person of color around. We all know, we've heard those jokes, we've heard those comments, the things that you go, well, I guess it's not really racism, and you let it go because you don't want to make waves with a friend or a colleague or a family member. It's time for all of us to take up the burden and to say no to those kind of comments. But more than that, it's time for us to be proactive. It is not enough to be not racist. We must be actively anti-racist. I think, speaking as a white person, I've always kind of thought things are getting better. And I think especially a lot of us, frankly, after the election of Barack Obama, thought we'd really turned a corner. But I think what a lot of us white folks don't know is that there is still daily racism impacting the lives of our friends of color. I think a lot of us white people hearken back to what Martin Luther King Jr. said about the arc of the moral universe being long but bending towards justice. We think, oh, it's getting better. But my grandma used to say, the arc of the moral universe doesn't bend by itself. It only bends when we apply pressure to it, when we craft that into an arc and force it to bend towards justice. So again, to my friends and my colleagues who are people of color, I am sorry. And that is a pretty lame thing to have to be able to say, because I know it doesn't make up for it. But to my friends and colleagues who are white, this is your call to action. I need you to help your friends and colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Executive.
Mr. Tumano.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. I would like to ask, I don't know if I could ask the speaker, I'd like to In the spirit of, I know we're discussing the gas tax, and we're continuing to have discussions in the next month or two on those, but I was wondering if you'd be kind enough to put Resolution 08-220, and that's the resolution clarifying what the RTA funds could be used for, up just for discussion, and maybe the Public Works Committee or the Executive Committee, because I think if we do go towards a gas tax, if this county board should enact one, I think it's important that we make sure that the monies that come in from the residents on their gas tax be used solely for the roads. And I think there's just a little bit of language that we could tighten up. I know in some spots it says it can only be used for capital projects of X or public safety. I just think we could tighten that up a little bit to make sure that those dollars only solely go for the roads. But last but not least, I just wanted to say, happy Thanksgiving to everybody in this room. We all take time away from our jobs, our families. I love every one of you, and I respect every one of you, and I thank you for all your hard work, because the last couple months and the next couple months have not been easy. They're not going to be easy, but it's every one of the individuals like us that are willing to step up and take on these big issues. I have a lot of respect for every one of you in the room. So happy Thanksgiving, and I really hope you enjoy your families this next week.
Thank you, Ray. Any other board members that want to make a comment? Then we go to, Mr. Corralitis.
Yes, sir. Larry, I just want to say I have missed your wit and wisdom up there, man. You got a couple good liners in there today that I remember what I'm missing now. So you got to make sure you get back in that seat there.
Yeah.
So
I plan on it.
And I just want to thank Speaker Winfrey and some of my colleagues across the aisle that looked at this cannabis situation in a common sense way and chose to take the time to educate ourselves further, as well as educate and find out what our constituents want as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we'll go to the Majority Leader, Mr. Ferry.
Well, it's not quite afternoon yet, so if I hurry up, maybe we can all... Oh, it's an hour off? Oh, my God, I never noticed it till now. All right.
It's almost after lunch.
Yeah, okay. Let me make it real quick. Re-recognizing Mike Hennessy on 30 years with the United Way of Will County. Great job, Mike. And also recognizing the 100th anniversary of Zonta International. And I would say go Bears, but that's done till next year. And there's only 91 days till pitchers and catchers report to spring training. And that's and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Minority Leader, Mr. Frizzlone.
Thank you, Executive. I, too, want to say happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Certainly, it's a time to spend with your families. I know I'll see most of mine. So make time for your families on that. But there also is another special day coming up, December 3rd, Tuesday, December 3rd, and that's National Day of Giving, which was started in 2012, or some people call it Giving Tuesday. It's a global event at this point. There's many ways that you can give. I know here we tend to spend other people's money. This is a time for you to spend your money. Maybe you set up a food drive, as we just did at our company last week. You collect toys for the holiday season, or just donate to your favorite charity. But that's December 3rd, Tuesday. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mike. Now to our Board Speaker, Ms. Winfrey.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. Just a couple of things. Thank you to all of you for your participation this morning. I appreciate that. We don't always agree, but we can agree to do the work that needs to be done for the county. So thank you all for being actively engaged and staying through much later today and being willing to do that. I just want to comment for Mimi, thank you for bringing that forward. And I want to remind people that racism creates a dual burden. It is a burden on the person who is the victim. It also means that the person who is doing it has to carry around that hate and that anger. So it serves no good for anybody. So just remind people of that. And the silence is really what kills. People seeing it, staying silent, not speaking up is what is the most hurtful thing. So I encourage people to not do that. I also want to say thank you to everybody for the calls and well wishes I received over this past weekend. I had a minor health issue. It's all resolved. I'm good to go. But thank you for the concerns. And I want to wish everybody a healthy, happy, and safe Thanksgiving. My prayer for all of you is that you would enjoy the company of family, friends, however way you choose to share Thanksgiving, and come forward next month ready to do the business of the county.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We are have to go into executive session.
Yes, we do. Pending litigation and personnel. So we'll get 5 or 10 minutes for